This is the Doug is Okay podcast, where we discuss culture, tech, and good times.
Okay, today I've got Jared. We're just going to be talking. Jared's a really cool guy. I met him recently, and every time I've seen him, we've had a lot of fun. And he enjoys my sense of humor, which is refreshing in this podcast. And Jared's excuse the pun, but a wealth of knowledge on fundraising. But let's just solve for something fun.
All right.
What do you got for us?
Something fun?
Yeah.
The fun in fundraising?
Yeah, that sounds fun. Well, money is fun, right?
Yeah.
I think it's fun because of all the, some people spend their lives going after money.
Mm-hmm.
And they get so much money and never have any fun.
All right.
Another guy, if we go back to podcast number 1, I'll talk to another Jared about being wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
And we have that whole conversation, so we won't repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
Money is not always the answer, but fun can definitely go a long way.
Yeah. No. Fun is a huge, it's a part of life, right? And hopefully it's the biggest part of life for everyone. But the thing about fundraising that I think is often misunderstood is that, it's not just the super wealthy or even the wealthy people who can have fun with fundraising and philanthropy. It's anyone, right?
Right.
So the idea is that you find something that is something that you care about, an issue, whatever, a person even, and then you impact that subject, if you will, in a way where you progressively kind of move it forward in whatever direction that is, right? Doesn't matter. But you're doing something collectively with a group of people that you absolutely fundamentally cannot do yourself.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing with philanthropy.
And what I like about it as well, so fundraising, it's fun sometimes that enable other people to progress.
Yeah.
And I've been a recipient of that, I'm sure you have too.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's generosity and the difference that's made in your life.
Yeah.
Like I think back on a trip it was for one of the made a non-profit trip.
Mm-hmm.
And as a participant, I had to come up with some money to go on this trip.
Sure.
And it was at a time when I thought I didn't have any spare cash.
Mm-hmm.
And before I'd even raised it with people organizing the trip, they had approached me and said someone paid for the whole thing.
Wow.
Which was incredible.
How old were you?
So I was like 22, 23, about.
Really?
But I just thought that was cool.
Were you stripping at that time?
No, I wasn't stripping. If I did that, I'd have to pay in.
It'd be the opposite of a scholarship, right?
You will get money back and some trauma fee.
The punitive damages are.
Exactly. Yeah, we can't unsee that.
Yeah.
It wasn't either I was working, but it's just as it's.
Yeah. Yeah. But it was impactful for you.
The trip wasn't very cool. And I was able to do some.
Yeah.
It was just a very positive experience,
Right.
And it kind of opened my eyes. So,
what would be the biggest impact that it had on you? Tell me more about that.
I could go on the trip. I would have eventually. I'd gone to all the pre-trip meetings,
Mm-hmm.
been fully briefed on the whole situation.
Yeah.
I was excited to go, but it was kind of wanting it to be possible.
Right.
And for the first time about the trip, I realized, I don't know how to make this work.
Yeah.
But before I could even open my mouth on it, paid. So
Yeah.
I love that here. So I know you do fundraising for some schools and universities,
Mm-hmm.
and I just can't imagine what difference that makes to people pursuing education,
Mm-hmm.
wanting to further themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think it probably helps the people donating money too, because they've got an abundance.
Mm-hmm. In most cases, yeah.
Yeah, and they can they probably feel good about the student goals.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting. I know someone wrote a book recently about die with zero.
Die with zero. Fascinating concept. Sadly, I have, but I haven't yet read it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the premise is don't sacrifice too much, accruing too much.
Sure.
So figure out what we need in it and then spend it. And then get the timing more out of you.
Like the opposite of what Edward Jones would recommend, right?
No, what would he recommend?
Edward Jones. I have a very good friend who works as a Edward Jones broker, right? Wealth management, Point being, they have a very conservative approach, or at least they're known for that. But it sounds like you're making kind of the argument of like somewhere in between being conservative and like way too, money happy to being somewhere in the middle, which is a cool thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I talk about this a lot. I had a mentor who was with $3 billion and he died at 62.
Exactly. Yeah.
And he told me himself he was an alcoholic.
Yep. I feel like you're cutting right into me, man.
I know a lot of people have inherited huge sums of money.
Mm-hmm.
And at a certain point, it just keeps accruing.
Yeah.
So they possibly can give away a lot and still have a lot.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
But I was talking with someone recently about buying a jet.
Mm-hmm.
And he's well on the way to getting a jet. And he was, well, you can get a jet. And I got it. No, I thought. He goes, no, you can't. You give me advice.
Yep.
And you can definitely get a jet. And I was like, no, the reason I can't get a jet is by the time I have anything close like enough money, I'm going to be out of the game. Like there's going to be no chance of me getting to them be on the beach. But, no, I'm going to fly coach to the beach.
You're going to be like offering up the best like tequila drinks to all the visitors, right? Like as the rest of your life.
I've been a barman before.
You've been a what?
Barman.
Really? Oh yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah, it was a great job. Just socially, I could connect with a lot of people.
Yeah.
It wasn't really like a cocktail barman. It was
right
in the English club.
Yeah. Like a dive bar.
No. This wasn't a well-to-do part of it.
Oh, really? Okay. All right.
In fact, someone came in there with a Ferrari keys on the bar, and he was evidently the guy who designed the graphics for a lot of the F1 teams back in the day.
For a lot of the what?
Yeah, Formula 1 team.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it was kind of interesting people that lived in that.
Yeah.
But no one super pretentious.
That's nice.
Well, I think probably the fact that the location of the pub was pretentious.
Right.
But the people who came in weren't necessarily pretentious.
Right.
So I think if you're in that particular area, going to that particular pub, it was assumed that you were
part of it, the fabric there.
Yeah, certain financial means.
Yeah.
So that may have been it in some state. I mean, it's a lot like in other places. Well, no one knows it's snobbery, but it's a very refined game.
Mm-hmm.
In other place,
mm-hmm.
Where here it's a little bit. It can be more blunt.
Right.
Yes, it's quite interesting.
I hope so.
And another guy who kind of on the subject of wealth that was really interesting is called Felix Dennis.
Mm-hmm.
You heard about it?
No.
So I think he's credited with saying he spent a lot of his money on booze, hookers, and expensive things. And he can't think away anything he regrets. That's what he said. I'm probably boiling myself.
Did he have the pause, the dramatic pause like you had to?
I think he may have. So he's got this book that's kind of very entertaining to read. He talks about, well, I think it's called I'll Make You Well.
I'll make you wealthy. Yeah.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think he also fancied himself as a poet.
Oh, really?
Just made it more fun.
Yeah. That is
That was
fun.
interesting. So we're back to schools, just to stay a little focused, somewhat.
Somewhat.
The you have some, it's going to go a while.
Mm-hmm.
And they all approach a higher institution
Mm-hmm.
and want to give some money.
Mm-hmm.
What should be their reason for doing that?
Mm-hmm. It is so. There are tax benefits, but the idea, I think all too often people think that philanthropy is like everything else where there's a value exchange that is tangible.
Right.
Right.
That's how most of us who are not in those upper echelons think.
Right. Right.
We trade either time for money,
Right.
or a tangible good
Exactly.
that we've labored for.
Right.
So we operate in that realm, but there are people that don't operate.
That's right. And it's understandable. Yeah. And it's understandable why people wouldn't, right? So, the idea that philanthropy, first and foremost, is not an exchange of tangible goods or commodities like energy, like housing, like insurance. We all have to have insurance on our home, right? Due to state regulations and federal, et cetera. So the idea that you don't have to have it makes fundraising exceptionally hard, right? And the way I think about it is that it's not hard in the sense that for those who not only do it but enjoy it and have kind of dedicated their profession to, it's hard in the sense that you have to understand people and their motivations and inspire them on a micro and a macro level too, and be able to read them in a way that there's no process for it. That becomes a lot of the art, right? But identifying somebody's priority, what are they focused on? What would they like to help is important. What impact then do they want to make in that priority?
So on a rather crass level, you could have someone who mom died of cancer.
Yeah.
And he wants to fund a cancer research
Mm-hmm.
institute.
Yeah.
Or any number of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the one thing that I'm kind of conscious about is my experience of wealthy people is they're very generous.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's something in having a generous spirit that attracts good things to you.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that? Some of the people.
It's funny.
I don't think you can, with anything in life, I don't think you can generalize.
No.
But I'm just thinking back of a few very successful, wealthy people that I've come across.
Yeah.
I'm always amazed.
I think there is my perception after having been in fundraising for 13 years and being with high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals, is that, there are probably a few motivating factors for people to make philanthropic gifts. Let's talk about major gifts, right? Or principal gifts. These are a major gift at a lot of American universities, I would say, at least from a public standpoint, is let's say it's $25,000. Now you can pledge that over 5 years, right? So it's $5,000 a year. Let's think about it in those increments. A principal gift a lot of time is around $1 million, right? It's an order of magnitude, exactly. Yeah. So, and that's just vernacular, right? But the idea is that if you are working with somebody who has the means to make a major and especially a principal gift, right? It is so incredibly important to tap into, again, every part of kind of who they are and ask massive fundamental questions. So much so that for example, when you're selling a commodity, does that commodity change? How often does it change? Is it for every client in any way, right? So let's not talk about value though. That's a good point. Not about price, but it changes in its form, its structure, what it is.
Well, when airplanes said so on that, and he was saying on any year, an aircraft can go up significantly in value or reduce value, or could stay the same, but there's a huge fluctuation in value depending on the prevailing climate at the time.
Of course.
So the aircraft hasn't changed to say.
Yeah.
But the values change. The perceived, I think we should say perceived value.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is fascinating. I mean, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of, it's perception, right? I mean, it's what we're talking about.
And it's also their outside influences, for example, in pervading tax climate. And the reason we got onto this was because one on close to was using someone else's aircraft, and the guy sold the aircraft to me. He has to drive his car for 8 hours now.
All right.
So we were just talking about the convenience and what would be.
Yeah. Yeah. And that becomes, when you think about it from a tax perspective, philanthropy becomes a commodity. It does become a commodity in the sense that you're getting a tax benefit from it, be it philanthropy or an investment property or whatever, right? Like you're looking at it as a means to an end in that way, in a material end. But what I think is incredibly fascinating, and I think is exactly why I do this work, is the old adage of like everyone's different is so incredibly true.
Right. And that's one thing.
If you could imagine meeting, let's say, for example, in fundraising, on average, you have, let's say, 75 to 100 or 100 to 125, we'll call it leads on the private sector. On the philanthropic perspective, we say typically prospects, right? They're just prospects, and that's used in the private sector as well. Now, the ability to be able to go out and let's say you meet with each of them throughout 1 year, 365 days, you've met with 125 different people, right? And you've had interesting conversations about who they are, what they enjoyed, not like, do you want this or not? It is more like, let me try to get to know you. Let me break down the barriers of the differences between me and you,
One thing I've really, actually, I really don't know much about this space.
Sure.
But one thing I've read is people not very of is called fundraising.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fundraising. I think what I'm really fascinated about in life is I'm incredibly curious.
Right.
And what I'm fascinated by is understanding people.
Yeah.
As I've gotten older, I've become more interested. And I have noticed that people in fundraising, especially the higher end ones, for bigger sums that I think you're involved in, have a way more developed sense of understanding people and reading that.
Yeah.
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
Just as you said, like having the range and the bandwidth to be able to connect with people from very, I would imagine, vastly different backgrounds. Like I met a oil and gas guy.
Yeah.
We had a jet and he was wearing Kappa sweatpants with the zipper on the side.
Yeah.
Snakeskin boots that must have cost any part from $5 to $10,000.
Of course.
Big fat gold chain. And he had a luminous day glow green shirt on.
Really?
And the only thing we could really connect on, and I already wanted to connect on, learn from this guy. He's incredibly successful. He was talking about Oscar Pistorius.
Talking about one?
Oscar Pistorius is a South African guy who shot his girlfriend through the restroom door.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And this guy, the skin breed guy, said to me, "You're from South Africa or something." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm from there."
And he's like, the only thing I know about there is asking for source. And I don't understand why he didn't say to that young girl, come out from behind the restroom, I'm fixing to shoot you. And at that point, my reaction was there, just started laughing, and there was that broke down communication.
broke down communication.
I think he thought less of me at that point. And quite big, because in your day-to-day too, I'm sure you tell him,
excuse me.
I'm sure I come across this more often than I do.
Yeah.
And just being able to navigate.
Yeah.
It's just something.
It requires being dynamic in many ways, right? And so the interesting thing is that
Probably nimble as well.
massively, that's kind of part of the dynamism of just being like, being nimble, being like charismatic, reading the room to be able to anticipate somebody's objection, doing kind of homework on being able to transition conversations, just having that experience, that practice. Segues are my favorite thing, right? Like my next tattoo is probably going to say segue, right? Like, cause yeah, I have one. I'm just joking. Yeah. But yeah, I do. Yeah. Yeah. I was younger. I was probably 28 when I got it.
Was not to be too personal, but was it something meaningful? Did it just come to that too?
Yeah, it's I'll show you.
Oh no, that's cool. So we actually got. Oh, that's really cool. Wow, you did that?
It's an artist in New York. So this is my grandfather was a custom harvester, so he used to use combines, Case International in particular, to cut crops. This is a painting, though, that my grandmother painted while he was doing this work in Wyoming, and her name is Velma Rainey, and it's signature there, so it's homage to both of them in that way. So,
and you get that? I'm asking, did he cost? So then you got that.
Yeah, they had both that.
Somewhat of a
massive. So my grandfather and grandmother lived probably 50 yards away from us, right? And that's right. So we had several acres out in the country, not a lot of acres, but just enough to be able to have like 2 houses on them comfortably and still have quite a bit of green. Yeah. So they live like,
So
again,
was it like a contract
of? That's exactly right. Custom harvester, they call it. Yeah.
Someone that the other day, his grandfather did something similar, where I think I'm going to get this one, but he cuts the grass and bales it. Is that the same thing? It's different.
This is a little bit different in that soybean and wheat. So they actually, cut the stalk. It goes to the grain elevators. It gets processed for food mostly. Yeah. Yeah. Consumption that way. Less like ranching hay, more like agriculture, farming kind of thing.
So I think that ties in with like a lot of the people that really admire what the people are. I don't like the way it's self-made, but they people who've started off and have done it.
Yeah.
They literally were bootstrapping themselves onto where they got.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a range.
Yeah.
Not everyone's done that.
Yeah.
But I really admire people that have done it. So I love.
Yeah.
So I see. Yeah, that's actually.
Yeah.
So we kind of have a bit of a joke with one of the partners on this podcast that, well, if we get 1 million subscribers, he's going to get the Doug is okay. Tattooed on him.
Please do.
His name's Jared. So story. I think he's starting it out of it, but they recorded saying that.
Yeah.
So I think it would be story, but I think he's safe. I think his skin's safe.
His skin's safe. Okay, all right, that's good. As long as his skin's safe. Yeah.
About fundraising, so you have to say nimble. Is that what you make sure?
Dynamic, yeah. And but so I'm glad we got back to this because no, I know. I love it. So the interesting thing too, because you're unpacking the persona of the person who can be successful in fundraising, is that there's a lot of things that we think about when people are good at their job, for example, that it's part of their persona, right? Like, so a lot of people think of fundraisers as
and then we spend a lot of time talking about that.
Yeah.
And like people, so darning and just exploring a little bit more, is that your passion?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So the person's passionate about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Whereas some people are not passionate.
Right. Yeah. And I happen to be full on passionate about it, and you have to be, which is part of my point here, which is that, you have innate abilities to be able to like relate to people, right? So I hear from people who, quite frankly, don't know a lot about fundraising, which is understood, and it's understandable rather, is that they say, well, I have the gift of gab because I believe just being able to talk to somebody is what fundraising is about.
Yeah.
The gift of gab. Yeah. And it's,
I would say that would not work.
Yeah. You know that expression.
What you're talking about is a targeted conversation.
Yeah. Ultimately, it is.
It doesn't sound great.
No, the gift of gab means that people have the ability to just talk nonstop.
All quiet.
Yeah. But in reality, successful, I would say, fundraising conversations, and this probably applies to in every sense in sales, is this ability to be able to listen more than you talk, right? So there's an 80-20 rule, right? And it's not just about selling someone, it's about relationships, right? If you give somebody 80% of the airtime and you talk for 20%, and that 20% you spend getting to know more about that person, asking open-ended questions, for example, like, tell me more about that. How does that make you feel? That sounds like a psychologist conversation, but a lot of times it becomes that because you are trying to unpack more from somebody to be able to get to any kind of truth. Because the fact is that a lot of people, in fact, I would say almost everyone I work with, are uncomfortable about philanthropy, right? Because ultimately they know that I'm sitting across from them and I have a job to do, which is to ask them to do this, and they're uncomfortable either because A, they don't want to do it, B, they've never done it before, C, they don't know the mechanics of philanthropy, which is also tied to, B, and also because there's a lot that social pressure, you name it, right? So it's not just because they're scared of being asked,
Well, we'll wrap this up here, but thank you very much for being on the show with us today. It's been an absolute treat for us to hear all the wisdom that you brought. Definitely want to have you back again.
Thank you for listening to our show today. Please consider supporting us on Patreon and following our progress on our website, dougisok.com. Until next time, stay okay.